What's going on, you guys? This is your boy RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, bringing you a video on something that's not really related to games, but it kinda is because we're diving into that voice acting realm. As you guys know, voice acting is one of the key components when it comes to making a good game because a character needs to have that life force, and the only way to do that is by hiring a voice actor. That's not to say that we don't get those games that only operate exclusively to just text where you have to use your imagination to wonder what the characters sound like, but mostly in modern gaming we always give voice acting because it gives that project extra oomph. It's been that way with games over here in the West, and it's been that way in the East, especially in Japan where Japanese voice actors are highly revered. While they don't make up that big status quo of mainstream celebrities, they are considered for all intents and purposes celebrities in their own right by the Japanese community, and over time we've seen their popularity transcend out of their native region of Japan over to the West and other locations. And this is where we got to get into that interesting territory, right? Because if you guys aren't aware, there's been a lot of debate going on about English dubs and the original Japanese audio, and the Yakuza aka Like a Dragon series has entered that chat. And this one is no stranger to controversies when it comes to Western localizations. It's hard to forget that awful English dub we got for the 2006 game. But hey, times have changed and English dubbing has gotten a lot better over these years. And the 7th entry in the Yakuza series backs up this argument. Yakuza Like a Dragon is one of those games I can play in both language options. When I first played this title, I thought about changing it to the Japanese audio, but once playing it for an hour or so, I instantly forgot that I was intending to do that because the English dub was just so good. KG Tong did a phenomenal job as the main protagonist Ichiban, and my sentiments have spread across the board with all the other actors too. RGG Studios even went out of their way to bring back Daryl Carrillo, who was the original voice of Kiryu in the PlayStation 2 game, which is one of the most highlighting moments in Yakuza Like a Dragon. A lot of fans were excited and very embracing of Daryl's performance, and this had a lot of fans looking forward to hearing Daryl more as Kiryu in the next installment. But sadly, that redemption arc for Daryl was short-lived because Sega and RGG took it upon themselves to recast the Dragon of Dojima, and he'll be voiced by none other than YouTube sensation YongYea. And if you've been following this channel for a while, you know I'm no stranger when it comes to this guy. Like, we've had our back and forths, which was more one-sided on my part, because it was mainly just me barking up a tall tree while Young laughed all the way to the bank with his newfound success in gaming news. And I'm by no means a hater of YongYea. I actually enjoyed his channel back when it used to be all about Metal Gear Solid, and I know in order to remain relevant on YouTube, you have to kind of step outside of that comfort zone and grift into other territories until you gain major success, and rage bait is one of those lucrative forms of content. Young has done an exceptional job of rallying all those gamers who love to stay angry all the time and just criticize the companies that do things, which is nice to bring these things to people's attention, but sometimes it's even better to talk about some of the positive things in gaming because you don't want to sound like a broken record all the time, man. And you definitely don't want to end up eating your own words just in case you give out the wrong information or you do something that totally contradicts what you've been doing all this time, which is criticizing stuff.
I was a little taken aback by how much Mario just sounds like Chris Pratt doing like a bit of a Brooklyn accent.
Because that's what Young does. He does a lot of criticizing about different companies and stuff. And now that he's in the public eye in terms of entertainment and gaming, a lot of fans have a lot of criticisms towards his performance as Kiryu. And he hasn't really been receptive to any of those criticisms. It all started when he posted this comparison with his English voice compared to the original Japanese voice.
もう3分待ってくれたら素直に感謝できたんだがな。
You know, had you just waited 3 minutes, I'd have been a little more grateful. Yeah.
町の情報通何人かに接触して渡りはつけた。
I made contact with a good number of people, just waiting for them to get back to me.
And as you hear, it doesn't sound remotely similar to what the Japanese voice actor did or what Daryl did all those years ago in 2006 and in Yakuza Like a Dragon. It actually just sounds like YongYea reading lines with his normal voice, which we already know he does because that's all he does is read news articles as opposed to give his own input on things. In my opinion, voice acting should be this thing where people are left guessing on who the voice is. It's all about creating a new identity with your voice and not trying to sound like yourself, especially when somebody is used to hearing you all the time. And make no mistake, I'm one of those people who can recognize a voice actor after hearing them in so many different projects, but Young's voice just sounds like one of his videos. I tweeted to him that his voice needed more timbre, and I was hoping to hear a little more of his Poochie voice, because if you guys aren't familiar with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Young has already done a voice in that particular franchise where he voices a character that has a low-pitched voice, and I felt like that would have been an awesome fit for this version of Kiryu that he was trying to bring to life, but we got Young Ryu instead. And it's unfortunate, man, because I do feel like YongYea has range, but I just think that this character just wasn't for him. And it seems like I'm not the only one that thinks this, because as you can see, Young got his fair share of criticisms from others who thought that his performance was a little lackluster. One person commented, and I quote, "Unfortunately, in my opinion, you're not a great match for Kiryu's voice. Yours is just not deep enough for old Kiryu in my opinion. I like your videos, been watching you since MGS5 analysis and theories. So used to your voice that I can't hear Kiryu in Like a Dragon. I hear just plain YongYea." My sentiments exactly, like that's all you hear. You just hear his voice. Somebody else, they commented, "Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be playing in English. I know you probably tried your hardest and that's very much appreciated. I tried very hard to like it, but I'm sorry, you just genuinely don't sound like Kiryu. Recasting Daryl Carrillo was a mistake. I will be switching between dub and sub to hear KG Tong's performance." And KG, man, once again, he did an exceptional job as Ichiban in Like a Dragon. The dude has been rising up in that hierarchy of English voice actors, and if you're an avid fan of watching anime, especially the newer stuff, there's a high probability that you've heard him in a project. Most English dub fans probably recognize him as Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen, so yeah, this guy's English voice acting filmography runs deep. And so does his range, like he can go from playing a very light-hearted character to a deep, dark, gritty character. And if you ask me, they could have tapped him on the shoulder and asked him if he could play Kiryu instead of Young, because he just has that range. Another worthy candidate I have is Robbie Damon. I think they could have tapped him on the shoulders because RGG had recently worked with him on Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise, where he voiced Kenshiro. And this guy, he has a lot of range. Like, he usually voices these happy-go-lucky jovial characters like Prompto from Final Fantasy 15.
My name is Robbie Damon, and I play Prompto in Final Fantasy 15. I'm sorry for intruding on Nocta time. Well, I'll head back then. Night.
But he can also go for the dark grisly characters who have a lot of bass in their voice, like he did for Kenshiro.
If you don't want to die, walk away. It's too late for you. You're already dead.
Funny enough, in Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise, you can actually unlock a Kiryu skin, and Robbie's voice goes well with that skin.
It's in times like these, especially in times like these, we need to help each other to get through this chaos.
And a lot of people were just coming in and just telling Young that, hey man, this ain't it, to which Young responded by blocking them. And I really wouldn't have a problem with this, especially if it was done on his thread where people were probably just saying stuff that was way out of left field. But this guy took it upon himself to vanity search his name and began blocking all the criticizers who didn't tag him directly. And that's where I take an issue with this, because once again, guys, as I mentioned earlier, this guy built his reputation off of criticizing companies and individuals. Like, he got all the smoke when it comes to that, but when that smoke comes back to him tenfold, he can't take it. This is the same guy that dedicated multiple videos about Chris Pratt and his portrayal of Mario, but now when somebody criticizes his work as a voice actor, he has a problem. And if you ask me, this only further sullies his reputation as a journalist, because he's done some other questionable things in the past that doesn't quite match with his brand, such as the extreme shilling he was doing for Cyberpunk 2077, a game that we knew was going to be dead on arrival, and this guy got a chance to play early and he acted like it was all good, only to backpedal and admit that it was actually a bad game. And it just doesn't stop there, because we also got to remember that he was the main one meat riding Hideo Kojima when it came to Death Stranding, when that game turned out to be nothing more than a walking delivery man simulator. And this only adds more wood to that questionable fire that Young has started so many times. As a voice actor, and I put heavy emphasis on the word actor because that's what you are at the end of the day, you should be open to criticisms because as a public figure, it's pretty much free real estate when it comes to criticisms. You should be the last person blocking anyone for having anything to say in regards to your poor performance. I just don't feel like this guy is the right one to play Kiryu. Kiryu is a man that's up in age, and I believe that an older voice actor with more experience can properly reflect that. But I don't feel like YongYea is the proper talent to do that. This, in my honest opinion, feels like a miscast, and it kind of makes me wonder why they even considered recasting Kiryu in the first place, because Daryl, as I mentioned, was doing an excellent job with the proper voice direction that RGG was giving him. He sounds like the English equivalent of the Japanese voice actor Takeya Kuroda. Coincidentally enough, they're around the same age, but they got somebody that's 20 years their junior to voice Kiryu. If you were to ask me why they did this, I can only come up with one thing, and it's gonna be a controversial statement, and that is voice casting based on your race. That's been something that has been gaining a lot of popularity within the industry, which goes all the way back to that controversial character of Cleveland Brown, a character that was black in ethnicity but was voiced by a Caucasian white man. I'm not exactly sure how this controversy started, but after 20 years of voicing the character, Mike Henry decided to step down from playing Cleveland Brown and pass the role over to an actual black African American actor. While there were some who thought this was a wise decision to make, there were others who felt like it wasn't really necessary, especially considering the fact that the new voice actor was basically just doing an impersonation of Mike's performance. And this thing would go on, like we'll see a similar instance when it came to the character of Carl Carlson for The Simpsons, where he was voiced for 20 years by a white guy only to be replaced by a black man because the character was African American in the show. And I'm a part of that group that feels like this was an unnecessary decision to make, because when it comes to this industry, a voice doesn't necessarily have a color, because there are different colors of characters in these different universes, and it's up to the performer to come up with a voice for those characters. For example, one of my favorite voice actors, Phil Lamar, who is an African American talent, has voiced many characters, some of which who aren't even the same ethnicity as him. We're talking characters such as Samurai Jack and Aquaman. When you're that good of a voice actor, it's hard to even see the actual person providing the voice, because the only thing you see is that illustrated character. And I feel like that's the case when it comes to video games as well. Like they fall in that same realm, because Phil Lamar, he's voiced a lot of video game characters. We've heard him voice Aquaman also in the Injustice games. But now that race-based casting has become this prominent fixture on the industry, I feel like it's gonna make it to where it's hard to get people that just have talent to play any character they want to play, because now they've come up with this idea that if it's an Asian character, an Asian man has to voice them. And if you didn't notice, Yakuza has a lot of Asian American talents voicing these characters, and this mostly applies to the leads. Like they do have other talents such as Caucasians voicing the characters as well, but I'm just talking about the primary characters such as Ichiban, who had Keiji Tong voicing him in Yakuza Like a Dragon, and now we have Young, who's going to be voicing Kiryu. And as I mentioned earlier, Keiji did a phenomenal job. I think this guy could easily voice anybody from any walk of life, but I think it's a bit ridiculous casting a person based off of their ethnicity, because you're only putting yourself in a box by doing that. If I'm going to cast an Asian talent to voice an Asian man, I gotta ask myself, what does an Asian man sound like? You see what I'm saying? It's like when people ask me if I'm really black because apparently I sound like a white guy, which makes no sense to me, but I know what they're referring to. They're saying that I don't sound urban, which if that's the case, then I can understand. Like if you want me to be urban, then there's a group for that. There's a group of black individuals that come from the suburbs and speak with a certain type of jargon. But there are other people outside of the black race that can speak in the same manner, whether it be because they were actually born in the same kind of location or they just have the talent to sound like such. For example, take the character of Jazz from Transformers. In the G186 series, he was voiced by a black man by the name of Scott Crothers, who accentuated Jazz's love for the urban culture. And we've seen many other black talents continue that trend for the character. But unbeknownst to some of you, there was an exception to that. I remember playing Transformers Fall of Cybertron all those years ago, and when I selected Jazz, I said to myself, man, whoever is doing this voice, he sounds an awful lot like Scatman Crothers.
Alright, just keep your channels open in case the rescuers need some rescuing. Let's do it!
Not snowman, Spike. Snowbot. a flurry in a hurry.
I really thought it was a brother providing the voice to this character, but come to find out it was actually a white guy by the name of Troy Baker. And you guys already know Troy. He is a big deal in the video game voice acting community. He's voiced so many characters from the likes of Joel from The Last of Us to Revolver Ocelot from Metal Gear Solid. But to find out that he voiced a character that's been most commonly associated with black people was a mind-blowing thing. Like, this guy sounded like they resurrected Scatman Crothers and brought him into the booth. And what is that accredited to? His actual talent as a voice actor. And that's the point I'm getting to, guys. Like, I'm not trying to make this about race, but it seems like that's the direction we're going in. And if we continue to go down this path, we're going to have a lot of miscastings like they did for youngest Kiryu. But anyways, that's all I got for you guys. I just had to get that rant out of my system because that has been bothering me ever since the announcement that Young was going to be voicing that character. As I said earlier, I don't take anything away from him as a voice performer because I think he does a phenomenal job when he's given the right direction and the right character. Like, he voiced Poochie, who looks like a black dude, even though he's not, you know? And I feel like that should be another thing that we should talk about too. Like, the whole idea of voice casting based off your race. Like, we really got to stop looking at the performer and start looking at their talent. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think I'm going a bit overboard by bringing this subject up? Or do you agree? Let me know down in the comment section below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on all the different social media outlets. Sharing is caring. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.